Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel. If you didn't see one of my recent posts on Instagram and on my blog, I have just hit my 1-year anniversary of taking testosterone and really starting my medical transition, and it's just been such a wonderful ride and wonderful journey. Anyone who's been following me for a while knows that I've done a lot of different updates about my medical transition, about the changes that I've experienced here on YouTube, on TikTok, on my blog, and since it's recently been my 1-year anniversary, I feel like it's time to do another, and I also want to focus this video on one of the most commonly asked questions I get about my experiences with testosterone, and that's how it's affected my mood. Now, I'm going to preface this video by saying that I'm not a doctor or a medical professional, and anyone who's thinking about going on HRT or medically transitioning should do their own research and talk with their own doctors and their own medical professionals and figure out what's going to work best for them. That being said, I do think I have, a unique personal experience and opinion to give being on testosterone now for a full year, and also being someone who's very openly diagnosed with BPD or borderline personality disorder. BPD is classified by some pretty extreme mood swings and very intense, large emotions. This, coupled with testosterone, which has not the best reputation, especially online, for also causing mood swings, anger, violence, aggression, all sorts of things, I can see why a lot of folks have reached out to me and been like, "Hey Lynn, what's your experience been with testosterone and mood? So let's talk about it." First, I'd be remiss to start this off without mentioning that there are a ton of studies about the effects of testosterone on mood, and honestly, they're very mixed. I found studies that say testosterone increase aggression and increase violence. I found studies that show that testosterone might increase serotonin production and your ability to process serotonin in your brain. It might have anti-anxiety effects. There's not enough time in the day for me to get into all of the different studies I looked at on testosterone's effects for mood, both as I was researching deciding to start HRT and in my time being on HRT. But what I will say is that the evidence does seem to be generally pretty mixed, and there's a lot of factors that go into how testosterone is going to respond for you, for your body, and for your chemistry and biological makeup. But a thing that I hear a lot from folks who are interested in starting HRT or interested in medically transitioning is that they are concerned about some of the mood effects that come with testosterone, especially for other folks who have mental illnesses like BPD or bipolar or anything that can kind of make their moods sometimes a little bit more extreme. And again, I can only speak for myself. I'm not a doctor or a medical professional, but my experience with testosterone thus far has overall been an incredibly positive one. I am on low-dose testosterone, so my testosterone levels are not super high. I don't personally feel like I need to disclose intimate medical information with the internet, but what I will say is that there's levels of testosterone that a cisgender woman would have, and there's levels of testosterone that a cisgender man would have, and I'm somewhere here. I'm pretty in the middle because I do take low-dose T. My testosterone levels have steadily been climbing, but they're still very much in the middle. And I've definitely noticed more stable moods and easier to manage moods since I've started testosterone. I feel like my mood swings have not been as intense since starting HRT. I feel like when I do have really big emotional mood swing moments, I think everyone can relate to what I'm talking about. When it's just one of those days where all the little things keep going wrong. You burn your toast for breakfast, there's traffic, you're late to work, you stub your toe really hard on the desk, you come home, you don't have the thing that you thought you did to make dinner, your cat accidentally scratches you, and then finally at the very end of the night you spill a glass of milk and it has you crying in your kitchen because it's just your break point in a bad day. And I've always dealt with that. I think we all always deal with that in life, but especially as someone with BPD whose moods and emotions can sometimes be more extreme, I've definitely very often in my life dealt with that, I'm losing my mind over this bad day moment. And it's been a year on HRT, and I feel like those moments have become fewer and further between, and when they do happen, they become easier to manage. But this is also the first year that I've really felt consistent satisfaction with my life. I don't necessarily want to say consistent happiness because we're not consistently happy. I'm not happy when I'm sick, when I have really bad allergies like I do right now, when I'm stressed about stuff that's going on with work, when I'm overwhelmed from traveling, when I'm overstimulated from being in new places. There's a lot of stuff that happens where I'm not happy all the time. But this year especially, I have been really satisfied, even in those moments where there hasn't been happiness or joy. And there's also been so much more happiness and joy than really I would say ever before in my entire life. And I really think a lot of it is due in part to being on HRT. And, this is for a variety of reasons. I do definitely think part of it is the actual effects that testosterone is having on my body. There was a time period when I was away traveling, and you have to be the person the script is written for has to be the person to pick up the script at my pharmacy. So, my partner couldn't go pick it up for me while I was traveling, and then I was gone for too long, so they restocked it, so I came back home and had to put the prescription in again, and then they had to contact my doctor. And anyway, there was a 2-month time period where I didn't take any tea because I was going through this bureaucratic mess of trying to get my prescription filled at the pharmacy. And I noticed I was way more stressed, and I think way more emotional and way more easily overwhelmed during that time period. And for the longest, I was my cycle just must be coming. And then I got my prescription, and I took my first tea shot, and 2 days later, I felt noticeably better. And my partner was like, it's the tea. It's because you haven't had your medication for the last 2 months. I definitely think that the physical effects of testosterone in my body, and the hormonal effects have had a really great elevation and mood stabilization for me, especially as far as my brain processing serotonin and feeling those feelings, but also reducing some of my anxiety, especially social anxiety, and making me feel comfortable in just a variety more situations that used to make me feel very anxious and stressed and overwhelmed. And there is some really good documentation to support the concept that testosterone can improve depression, improve overall mood, and also improve anxiety. I'm going to be honest, probably the biggest shift is really socially. I had a lot of doubts about starting HRT. I was concerned that I might not like the changes for my body. I was concerned, and I've spoken a lot about this before on my channel, about feeling, not trans enough, or feeling because I'm non-binary and because my goal isn't to become a man or present as a man, because my goal is something more in alignment with androgyny and more in alignment with my personal feelings about my body. I felt insecure about starting to take HRT. But I gotta say that taking the time to really be my authentic self and live as my authentic self and take these steps medically and physically to be who I want to be has been so just unbelievably healing for myself, for my soul. It's allowed me to be so much more authentic in who I am as a person. I have always struggled with the fear of not fitting in and not being liked. And, part of me is oh, that's just the Libra in me. Part of me is oh, that's just the social anxiety. Everyone has these worries and these concerns. But I've always really struggled with that. And I've always really struggled with being authentic because of that. I've spent most of my life wearing different masks to try and fit in to the people that I'm around out of a desire to be well-liked or well thought of or viewed the right way. And taking the step to start taking testosterone and HRT and allowing my physical body to become a more accurate representation of who I was, I feel gave me permission to do the same thing emotionally and socially. And I found myself less and less worried about being awkward or overbearing or info dumping or making a joke that didn't seem funny, and far more comfortable just being myself and saying the weird little things that I wanted to say to people, or info dumping about something that I knew or a cool fact that I had, and just being my authentic self, being the me that it used to take so much effort to get out of me, to feel comfortable being vulnerable and authentic around people. And it's incredible what a switch just flipped for me in my brain when I started medically transitioning, that I was immediately socially and emotionally able to be myself so much more. And there really is just so much power in standing up and in choosing to be your authentic self like that, and showing your truest self to the world and having it be accepted and welcomed and embraced by those upon you. And the social acceptance that came with beginning to transition and beginning to finally be my true and authentic self. And I don't say this lightly, but I have spent basically my entire life struggling with suicidal thoughts, and I've had multiple attempts. And this past year is really the first time that I can remember where I haven't actively felt like wanting to take my own life. In fact, the year that I started testosterone is also really the first year where I can say I am excited about living life, and I am looking forward to what the future holds and what the future brings. I'm excited for the next 5, 10, 20 years of my life. I'm planning for the future and thinking of the future for the first time. And this is because of a variety of factors in my personal life and in my mental health, but absolutely choosing to transition and choosing to take HRT and choosing to be my true self is a huge part of why I finally feel so much hope and so much excitement for life, and just so good. I think that there is an overwhelming amount of information about testosterone and different hormones and their effect on the body and the brain online. And there's a lot of different studies that I think people often cite or reference out of context. I have seen people make arguments using studies of extremely high testosterone levels in cisgender men, along with the use of other steroids and hormones leading to aggression and violence, and take those studies and say to trans people, look what will happen if you take testosterone, right? I've seen many people take assumptions about problems that we see happen with testosterone at these very, very high levels and take them to trans people and say, look what will happen if you do this. And I don't want to say that these studies are wrong or that these studies don't exist or that we don't see some correlation between certain emotions and certain behaviors with testosterone. Obviously, it's a hormone. It affects our emotions. It affects our mood. It affects our brain chemistry. I'm not going to try and pretend that doesn't happen. But anyone who's interested in starting HRT, I would just remind you that that final decision is between you and your medical providers. And what that situation looks like for you is going to be different from what it looks like for everyone else. When I started HRT, I had my hormone levels tested. They looked at the level of testosterone as a baseline in my body, which was pretty average for a cisgender woman. And I've been taking low-dose T, so my testosterone levels have been going up, but very slowly. Again, I'm not even anywhere near a cisgender male's testosterone levels, let alone above that. And I think it's really important contextually when we look at studies and research and the way that testosterone can influence our body, if that's something that you want to look into, to really pay close attention to things like the levels of testosterone where people are seeing these results and seeing these effects. Any comorbidities. If the people that they're looking at in this study were also taking other drugs or other substances or other hormones, and what's going on, and also to talk to people about their lived experiences. This video is in no way to discount, again, any of those studies that exist about testosterone, but just to kind of talk about my own personal experience with it. I'm also not going to say that it's been like a perfectly amazing experience. I've dealt with like really bad hormonal acne basically this entire time. That's been super not great. My cycle has been awful on T. I am at the numbers where a lot of people stop getting their cycle, and my body has not done that. And I will say my mood swings around that time are worse on T. I definitely have to like do more cycle tracking and like be like more prepared and more aware for when that's gonna happen, and I definitely feel way worse. I have just everything about it has gotten worse on HRT. So not all of this has just been like this magical, perfect walk in the park. But I'm gonna tell you what, if the trade-off is acne and really bad periods in exchange for I don't want to kill myself anymore, you know, give me the pimple patches, give me the heating pack, give me the Diva Cup, sign me up. Like, let's do this. Right, and is best for you is going to free you in so many more walks of life than you could ever imagine. If you had gone back in time and told 20-year-old or even 16-year-old Lynn, who really genuinely thought we would spend the rest of our lives struggling with just not wanting to be here and not enjoying life, that we would come out and we would start medically transitioning and we would almost immediately not feel that way anymore, I would have told you that you were a liar and giving me false hope. But here we are, and I can really confidently say, after a year of being on testosterone, that it's one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself, primarily for my mental health. All the physical changes that I'm excited about are great too, don't get me wrong. I have whole videos on my channel about bottom growth and vocal changes and body recomposition and all this physical stuff that I've gotten from T that I'm hype on. But even if I ended up getting none of that, just the way that this has given me permission to be who I am and to be my authentic self and to show that part of me to more people, it's incredible. It's more than I could have ever imagined. So if you're thinking about going on HRT, if you're not sure if it's right for you, if you're worried about side effects with mood and stuff on testosterone, I think those are all very valid ways to feel, and they're all ways I felt before I started. But I would strongly encourage you to work with your own medical professionals to make the decision that is right for you. And if you are doing research and looking at these studies, please really look at them thoroughly, really read them all the way through, and really dissect the argument that they're making and what they're trying to tell you. And there's also nothing wrong if you are worried about some of those side effects with starting off on a lower dosage. I've been on low dose T for a year, and sure, there's times when I wish some of my physical changes were happening faster, but overall, I'm really happy to be taking this transition slow and taking my time with it and enjoying it at the pace that's right for me. This video can help answer some questions and just kind of offer a different personal perspective on what being on HRT has been like for me, and I look forward to sitting down a year from now and giving a 2-year update about what it's been like on HRT, about how I'm feeling, about how I'm doing, and how testosterone is continuing to change my life. Hopefully still for the better. I can't wait to sit down and chat with y'all again soon, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!